Hello everyone, welcome back to another tier list video. Today, I will be ranking all the hyperchargers currently in the game and the new ones coming into the game next season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be ranking this by myself because... So yeah, enjoy the video. Alright guys, so first we have Dynamite. Honestly, it's probably the most mid hypercharge. It's like the middle of the pack, exactly the middle. There's no really bad downsides to this. It just helps with Dyna Jumps, gives an insane damage boost, makes the super almost 10,000 damage, is actually really good. Along with the Hypercharge, like charge rate getting nerfed a while back to make from 2.5 to 3.3 made him a really good balanced Hypercharge. I feel like B tier is really good for him. Now let's go with Frank. Frank has way too fast charge rate. I don't know why he still takes like less than 3 supers to get his hypercharge. It's just absolutely diabolical. It's probably why he's like S tier, maybe top of A tier right now. And yeah, I just feel like there's nothing you can do about it. He's just gonna have a hyper. Even if he dies 6 times, he's gonna have his hypercharge. He's gonna team wipe with the insane amount of stun he has. Alright, next we have BB. BB's also really balanced hypercharge. It has team wipe capabilities with the especially in crowded areas with like lots of walls. You'll be able to bounce her bubbles all over the place. Hard pause, but like she'll be able to do a lot with the speed and the shield she gets from it. Essentially having 13,000 HP because the shield, and with the speed allowing her to close the distance is really good. So, and the charge rate's only 2 supers, so I feel like she's gonna be B tier with this one. Next you have Spike. The only thing Spike super does is give him increased radius of a miniature Lucifer, making it just like, I just feel like it's not that great. The stat buffs are good, but like they're not enough to make Spike good enough. Considering that Spike isn't even that great of a brawler, and the fact that his hyper isn't that good, I'm just gonna put him in C tier. Bull's hypercharge is actually, I feel like, is one of the only things making, like, in any way giving him meta, along with the Stomper change with the gadget. Him getting 80% less damage reduction, like 80% less damage while in his super, is like gives him really good utility because the super is kind of outdated. It makes him go super slow, and if he goes into like, let's say the enemy team's face, but he dies before he resets, it'll be kind of useless. But now that he has the damage reduction and the fact that it also charges pretty quickly, I feel like it's good. The hypercharge is like a really great addition to his kit. Honestly, I'll put his hypercharge in low A tier, even though Bull as a brawler isn't like top tier. I'll put his hypercharge in A tier. Next, we have Charlie, and that is just horrible. Never buy this hypercharge if you have to think like just the mechanic of it spawning 3 spiders like while they're cocooned, and the spiders don't really help with killing the person in the cocoon. It's just useless. Even though the charge is quick, it's if you multiply 1 times 1, it doesn't really do anything because even if you get it quick. Next we have Cordelius. Cordelius' super is really good already without the hypercharge, and with the hypercharge it just completely 100% confirms the kill. There's nothing the enemy can do about it. It just deletes 1 person in the game. If you die when you use this hypercharge while in the shadow, you should probably just quit the game. But even it's kind of redundant though, but it still takes the person out of the game and confirms the kill on like even brawlers like Frank, because you can just run away and reload, stuff like that. And it still has use outside because the stat boosts are really good, considering that the damage boost makes him do almost 4,000 damage per ammo. Is crazy. I'm gonna put him high B tier. Rico is, I feel like, A tier. Before he was like S tier because of the charge rate. It was like so easy to charge, and the damage buffs with the team wide capability is insane. But now with the nerf to his hypercharge, he still has the team wide capabilities, but he's just gonna be getting it a lot less. And I'm just gonna put him in A tier for that reason. Gene's F tier again. It's even worse because I'll put Charlie's in D tier, but Gene's is F tier, bro. Like Gene's hypercharge pulls them faster, so just get deleted faster, because at least when the pull's slow, it'll be easier to, you can shoot them while they're getting grabbed, so it's easier to take them down. But let's say you Gene Hyper and you pull 2 enemies with like a decent moderately amount of HP with only like 1 teammate to help, you're gonna get instantly deleted. So I feel like it's just like worse. Don't even try to use the Hypercharge. Maybe the only time you would use the Hypercharge is probably after you get one good pull, then you can Hypercharge to finish off the job. But like, other than that, it's useless. All right, next we have Surge. Because the Hypercharger has 5 supers to charge up his Hypercharge, I feel like B tier is good because even though his Hypercharge itself is really good, like the charge rate at which you get the Hypercharge is absolutely horrible. It takes like an entire game to get one, and even if you get that one, there's like the game's pretty much already over. Especially in like games like Brawl, where games only last like maybe 2 minutes max because the dribbling and all the other stuff you get from tanks. I feel like Surge will get a lot of super from the tanks, but on any like on like another mode like that, I feel like the charge rate just isn't that great. And next you have Bell. Bell's is good Hypercharge overall because it doesn't reduce super. The damage buff and speed buff she gets is absolutely necessary for her kit, and it charges relatively quickly. So I'm just gonna leave her in probably above, actually below Surge, because Surge has the team-wide capabilities, but Bell's just really passive brawler, very balanced, literally the epitome of balance in this game, in my opinion. So her Hypercharge is balanced, her kit's balanced, everything's just balanced. Next we have Leon. Leon as a brawler right now, I don't feel like is that great, maybe B tier, but his Hypercharge allowing him to shoot while he's in his hyper is broken. This is what made him broken in the first place, was his Hypercharge, like his Hypercharge rate being 2.5, but now that it's like 3.3 to get his Hypercharge, it's still really good. The functionality is really good, but considering that it still takes a pretty long time to charge, I'm gonna put him in the top of A tier. Next you have Crow. Crow's honestly just takes too long to charge, even though it takes 1.6 supers to get his Hypercharge. Crow getting his Hypercharge of 1.6 supers, the game's gonna be almost over because the only time you'd ever really use him is Heist. And once you're in Heist, it should just deletes the save button. Like every other mode, it's like not that great because by the time you get his hyper, the game is already over because there's not much to really charge it off of. And his damage is really bad, so in general, he's just really bad right now. And on top of that, the buffs are good, but like he still dies. He'll instantly die after using super because it's like just a 5,000 HP bomb just going in. Like he'll get good value if like the enemies are like low, he finishes off all 3 of them, but like damage just doesn't add up, and he's 2 less HP to survive. And next you have Fang. Fangs I'm also gonna put probably high C tier. The functionality to be really good because you'd be able to go through walls, which is like Fang's one and only weakness, but now that it takes 4 supers to charge, fresh kicks doesn't help, and it takes like 16 shoe hits or super hits to like get his Hypercharge. You're not going to be getting his Hypercharge like for a lot of the game unless the enemy team just continuously feeds you. But the functionality is good, the charge rate is just way too long to like use effectively. And next you have Pearls. Honestly, Pearls I'm going to put in top of D tier because even though the stats, she gets a really good stat boost from this that help her kit out a lot, even though the super is absolutely useless considering that it pushes them out of the range of the Pearl burn area. So I feel like it's just kind of useless, but the stat buff she gets is absolutely, you can do like almost 6,000 damage with the gadget and the Hypercharge and just fully hit and deletes enemies. It is so much. I recommend you try it out. Even though super is not great, the Hypercharge itself is really good. So next you have Tara. Tara's I'm honestly going to put high A tier because this is the only thing that's making her a good brawler. Not only the gadget change as well improved her a lot considering you can get pets every 15 seconds pretty much, but her Hypercharge taking that area is just so much. You can team wipe so easily with this Hypercharge. It's like a team killer. Like if you catch your enemies lacking a little bit, they're cooked because there's nothing, you can't even stop with terrain now because it just destroys everything in the super radius. A tier is perfect. The top of A tier is just perfect because it brought Tara back into the meta. She has a niche now. On top of the pets giving it like a compliment, it's just really good. Next you have Nani. I'm gonna put bottom of D tier. The stat buffs, actually no, probably above Charlie, but the stat buffs are really good. But Nani's Hypercharge, because the super takes so long to use, and the fact the only thing that changes is that it gets bigger and just more damage, is like it doesn't really do anything for Nani. And the only reason you'd ever use Nani's for Nani's Hypercharge is for the stat buffs, because it goes from 4.4k to 5.1k, which is actually an insane damage buff. But the super just makes it super's just useless. Along with the charge rate's pretty good for the stat buff. So I would say pop Nani Hyper even if you don't have super, because super's useless with it. And now we have Colt. Colt is pretty outdated, but it is really good for damage on the high seat. So I'm gonna put him in B tier. It's just a standard Hypercharge, and get bigger super, allows for a lot more team wipes, but the damage you get from Colt is actually really good. Each ammo will be doing like around 5,000 damage, if not more, because of the 6 bullets times like the 900 damage from each bullet. It's diabolical damage, but it's still good. The Hypercharge is pretty decently, and it's just overall good Hypercharge. Jesse's Hypercharge, I'm gonna put top C tier again. It's just not that great. I mean, it's a 9,900 HP turret, where into the right comps it's really good, but most Jesse's just straight up not meta anymore. The only time you see her like picked is in like mythic lobbies where they just feed her super really well. But even though Jesse's Hypercharge is 1.6, Hypercharge is just really 1.6 super is really good. Like in general, I just don't see, if you play against good players, like they're gonna be dodging and they will not let the turret like hinder them in any way. Just overall, the Hypercharge is okay. Jesse's Brawl is bad. Jesse's Hypercharge is okay because of the damage buff. And yeah, next we have Barley. Barley's the super radius is crazy. I'm gonna put him probably above, actually probably below Rico in A tier, because he charges it pretty decently fast. I'd say 2.5 tier. It's not bad. And the Hypercharge covers such a big radius that's so good in hot zone. Okay in heist, but like mainly in hot zone, just so broken. You just can't sleep on this Hypercharge. Especially the damage. Like if you think about it, if they're all in a corner, like most of the time, if you get some good pressure in Brawl, hot zone, or any map where they're forced pushed back together, just like Tara's Hyper, I feel like if you Barley Hyper anywhere around that area, they're gonna get completely screwed. You're gonna be charging supers and hyper and normal attacks really quickly from that alone. Next we have Angelo. Angelo's Hyper is a really good complement to his kit. It allows him to move around and heal at the same time. I'm gonna put him top of B tier. The damage buff is really good. It just takes a while to charge. It's like almost 9 fully charged shots for Angelo's Hyper, so I feel like B tier is a great spot for him. It's like the perfect Hyper for him, just not enough supercharge rate or Hypercharge rate to get it. Lou before was complete S tier, there's no discussion. Honestly, I still think he is S tier, because even though it still takes 3.3 height as supers to get his Hyper, that's still relatively quickly, considering a full ammo just gives him a super, and then you can just keep chaining. Considering you only pick Lou into tanks, and even into mid-range brawlers, he's still really good because of the range he has, and with the freeze mechanic, it's just broken. It's just like S tier Hyper, bottom S tier Hyper because of the supercharge rate, but it's still S tier. Buzz's Hyper practically defines him, I'm not gonna lie. So with Buzz as a brawler right now, it's kind of falling off. Not that great. It still takes 4 supers to charge, but with the supercharge rate circle being so big, I can see it like charging pretty quickly, and honestly pretty moderately. But when he gets his Hyper, if you utilize him the right way for his mobility, it's like absolutely crazy. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like even as the last pick on Safe Zone with his Hypercharge is just really good. I'm gonna put him below Leon in the really good Hyper tier, because it takes a while to get the Hypercharge, but when he gets his Hypercharge, it's absolutely crazy. Next we have Colette. Honestly, Colette's like in a weird spot, because you can get the Hypercharge relatively quickly, because I think it takes 2.5 supers or 3 supers to get, and every single time you hit an opponent and they survive the 4 hits from Colette, like she's gonna regen another super, so it's just crazy team wipe capabilities, especially into tanks. I'm gonna put her in B tier, around maybe above Surge because of the charge rate and how fast he gets. So yeah, I think that's like perfect. A good ranking for her as of right now. Alright, next you have Max. Max, the use case is really good. She used to be definitely S tier before, but with the charge rate being almost a 33% nerf, or no, sorry, an 18% nerf to her charge rate, taking from 18 to 27, I feel like that's just like, actually not 18 to 27, but it's just a nerf to her hypercharge. She still charges relatively fast, and it's similar to loose case, but I feel like, and it allows you to make very aggressive plays, and it's very easy to charge with tanks. I feel like A tier is great. As her Hypercharge is like, not only it's just a great compliment to her kit, keeping her at practically A or S tier in almost everyone's tier list. Next you have Jackie's Hypercharge. Jackie's Hypercharge I'm gonna be putting above Bull's, because the Hypercharge that Jackie gets, like, it charges so fast. You can just die 3 times and you'll have your Hypercharge. Like, you don't even need to get any real damage, you just get the Hypercharge dying, and the speed boost and shield boost she gets, and it makes her unstoppable into certain comp. Like, if your comp struggles with aggression, you're gonna get completely screwed over by a Jackie like Brawl, for example. Her Hypercharge is really good. It might be a little bit predictable, like similar to Bull's, but a good Jackie could like completely team wipe and completely demolish a team. I feel like the only thing that's setting her back is like the damage she gets, because she gets no damage from this Hypercharge, so it's like the only downside to this Hypercharge. Next we have Brock's Hypercharge. Before the thing, I would definitely put him in F tier, but now that they doubled his Hypercharge super damage, I'm gonna put him in pretty decent B tier territory, because it's really useful for killing enemies, even though it might not be top tier on the high stage. It'll be really good for just killing enemies in general. And the damage boost, getting him from 2300 to 2900 damage per Brock rocket is crazy. Like, you can 2-shot multiple brawlers and 3-shot more than half the brawlers in the game. So even though the shots are hard to hit, if you hit those shots, they're really rewarding. And it doesn't even take that long to charge. I think it's like 2.5 to 3 supers ish. So I think it's pretty good placement from Brock. Next we have Miko. Miko's is also going to go blue on the bottom of D tier. The stun is okay into certain tanks, but other than that, I feel like Miko's Hypercharge, it might charge fast, but it's really useless. You only use it for the damage buff, and even then the damage buff is negligible, considering unless you're going into a tank that doesn't have like a knockback or stun or anything, it just doesn't feel right. It just like Miko's Hypercharge in general is just like not good at all. So just like probably below Charlie in D tier, in all honesty. Next we have Mortis. Mortis' Hypercharge is pretty nasty. His Hypercharge is like one of the only things that's even meta in like Brawl Ball and like COD, because the team like capability and the fact that he can survive for so long, because every single time he connects one of the supers, he deals 2000 HP. If you hit 2 enemies with Hyper Super and you can just keep chaining and chaining and chaining, and with the heals it's just broken. There's nothing you can really do about it. If your Mortis Hyper gets popped on you, better be ready to just like try to get some invincibility frames or something, because if he hits those supers on you, you're just completely cooked. Next we have the Nita Bear. Nita Bear's Hypercharge, the Nita's Hypercharge is really good. It gives an extra 1.4k HP to Bruce, on top of Bruce's use case being really good, just in general. With the stun and the extra damage you get from Nita's Hypercharge, giving him almost, I think, 1000 per swipe without pet power, and I think 1200 with pet power. It's just a really good Hypercharge, especially the charge rate. Taking only 2 supers to charge is crazy. In all honesty, I'm gonna put the Nita Bear into probably above Jackie, in all honesty, around this area, because the Hypercharge just allows you to make pop-off plays. It gives so much, like a tank. It's like pretty much a mini tank going in. It's just a tank going in for you with the gadget too, with a 40% or 50% gadget buff, shield buff. It's like you have to take down an entire Frank that does not give you super before you get to the 3 actual brawlers that are going to attack, that are the real players. So I feel like A tier for Nita's Bear would be perfect. Now you have Piper. Piper's Hypercharge is actually really good, pretty good, considering it takes, I think, 3 supers to get, and that it allows you to make pretty aggro plays and knockout and other modes like that. I just feel like B tier is just good, because the damage buff you get from her, the speed buff is really good. You can make pretty good plays with your super. You can actually super in a way where if they're within your radius and you jump over them and actually super past them in a way where you can knock them back into your mines, it actually also does a lot of damage, along with the push gadget will just stack. The damage just stack. And especially into passive tanks like Buster. If you smack them into your mines, you're gonna be completely screwed. Push them back, and then the damage from the Hypercharge will allow you to finish them off relatively easily in the 1v1. Next, we have Gale. So Gale right now is like a D tier brawler mainly because of his Supercharge rate, which in turn ruins his Hypercharge. But his Hypercharge is like the only reason you'd ever use Gale. So I'm gonna put his Hypercharge, disregarding his Supercharge changes, the Hypercharge rate in B tier because the Hypercharge has so many teammates. It's so big, it's practically undodgeable. There's nothing you can really do about it. It just like completely wipes your team to the floor once he gets it. Next we have Ems. Ems is gonna be D tier. It's not maybe not D tier, but low C tier because it's pretty much just an Ems gadget with an extra layer of spritz, and her attack doesn't even do that much damage. On top of her just being a bad brawler right now, it's just not good. It's just like a bad Hypercharge, and like it still takes a while to charge as well. Considering the fact that it takes I think three supers to charge, so it's just not good. I would not put this anything above C tier. Next we have Tick. So I think when Tick's Hypercharge got buffed to 2.5 supers, I think it actually is pretty good considering it denies areas that if they get hit in the right spots, it denies crucial areas of the map, which allows your team to push up. And the fact that it takes 2.5 supers to get makes it okay to get, and the fact that that each mine after the Tick head does 4,000 damage, especially like on certain modes like Knockout, if you Hypercharge super in the 1v1, there's nothing the enemy can really do, since even if they destroy the Tick head mine, like the mines will stay, and then they can't come into the place where there isn't gas because they'll just get shut out. There's nothing they can really do about it. Sandy's is an automatic A tier. I feel like because the charge rate is just so fast, and on top of Sandy's fast charge rate, the Hypercharge allowing you to get that much speed is just unhinged, bro. Like you can like go quick, like if you place it in the right place at the right time, like pretty much at the start of a Brawl map, for example, your team gets so much pressure and aggression on the enemy comp that if, like, let's say your enemy team has like a Maisie, for example, and the Maisie just like goes in, supers in. There's nothing they can really do about it because she's so fast. The super will come out instantaneously because the Sandy super makes them invisible, so you just can't do anything about it. And it just allows for so many aggressive plays, and the chemistry with the aggro brawlers A tier automatically. It's just so good.
Alright guys, so as you can see, we haven't completed the tier list, but we will continue this tier list in a part 2 due to the length of the tier list. So stay tuned for that. When it comes out, we will put it in the description of this video, and we'll see you later.